Hey guys, I don't really know how to begin this. I meant to do this yesterday, and apparently they're taking a vote today. No news is even reporting on what's going on right now, so let me get you up to date. I believe Monday or Sunday night, probably not, I don't think politicians are willing to do anything on Sunday, but sometime around that time, the Florida Senate voted in favor of a bill which gave the police more ability to take guns away from mentally unstable people and keep guns out of the hands of mentally unstable people and stuff like that. Now, a lot of those things can be debated because the question is, will that power be abused and how do you define mentally unstable? And I haven't looked into that much because what's been bothering me is a completely different part of this bill. Now, this hasn't been signed into law yet or anything. The House of Representatives, Florida House of Representatives, still has to pass it, and then more than likely Rick Scott will sign it. If the House does end up passing it, then this is a message to Rick Scott not to sign it and to veto it or do whatever you can to send this back to the legislative process. So you already know my views, but let me explain what has me concerned here. I've had an AR-15 for more than several years, and I purchased a high-point carbine when I turned 18. Both these guns, according to the Democrats, are considered assault weapons, and in this new bill they're presenting, it bans, according to the news media, AR-15 type rifles to those under the age of 21. Now that alone is all I need to hear. I don't even need to hear any other details because that goes against the entire point I'm about to make here. Also, this bill bans bump stocks, which completely has nothing to do with the recent shooting in Florida, and I can guarantee you more people have probably died in car accidents while you're watching this video than killed by bump stocks in Florida ever. Also, in the CNN article I read, this bill doesn't just ban the sale of bump stocks, but the ownership of bump stocks, which I think is really over the top. Usually you get grandfathered into these type of things. You can still bump fire without a bump stock. So are they going to ban bump fire altogether or just bump stocks? Because that literally prevents no crime and prevents nothing in the history of Florida. It's kind of like how we panic banned backyard shooting after we learned that for 150 years you could shoot in your backyard legally in Florida. No one has really complained about that until it comes to the public's attention that you can actually do that. Now you have to be at least like an acre away from another property and blah blah blah. But we survived for so long without even knowing you could do that. And it's laws like this that limit the authority of the people for literally no reason, and we say it's for security, but we have no proof that would actually help anyone. Now back to the 21 plus rule. Article 1, Section 8 of the Florida Constitution is basically our Second Amendment for the state. It states, "The right of the people to keep and bear arms in defense of themselves and of the lawful authority of the state shall not be infringed, except that the manner of bearing arms may be regulated by law," which is just a bunch of lawyer talk where they can do whatever the frick they want, which kind of negates the point of this. But you have to look for the reason why it exists. According to the reason why Article 1, Section 8 of the Florida Constitution exists is to defend the people and the lawful authority of the state. Now, why would people need guns to defend the lawful authority of the state? Well, because the original intent of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment, which most of us know by heart, states a well-regulated militia is needed for the security of a free state. Now, people might be mixed up on the terms here, but regulated actually means well-trained in Old English, and militia is not the National Guard. It's the people. The Second Amendment, the inspiration of it, originated from the Virginia Declaration of Rights. And in the Virginia Declaration of Rights, it says a militia is basically less tyrannical or less prone to tyranny than a standing army. And when it talks about the security of a free state, when you think about that for a minute, they're literally talking about the security of a free state. They're also, at this point in our Constitution, they're saying the states are free. For how long have we thought of the states as just sort of these little counties dictated by the federal government? The 10th Amendment gives them authority to govern themselves on issues not given to the federal government. The federal government has no control over issues not granted to it by the U.S. Constitution. And in return, the Florida Constitution clearly states all political powers is inherent in the people. And that is sort of the structure of authority that our government is. It's supposed to be the people, the state, the United States government. And as James Madison said, the ultimate authority is the people, even backed up by the Florida Constitution right at the beginning. So the whole point of this right to bear arms, protected under our restrictions on the government, is so that we can defend our authority and even our state's authority from any type of tyranny that might try to overtake it. Now, how are we supposed to defend our state as a ragtag team of people who aren't even allowed to access America's most popular rifle at the time, the AR-15? How are you expecting us to defend our land and our right to self-government if only the government is allowed to have that kind of authority? That kind of negates the entire point of Article 1, Section 8, and the Second Amendment, and any protection to the right to bear arms for that matter. You'd say, oh, well, it's just an age, and 21-year-olds aren't even allowed to drink. Why should they be allowed to purchase firearms? Well, then why do we have to register for the draft? Why are we constantly told that it's your right to vote, you need to vote? If we're too ignorant to decide whether we can drink or not, why do you insist that we go out and vote so ignorantly? And that gets to the point of the 26th Amendment, saying that 18-year-olds have the right to vote and neither state or the federal government is allowed to deny that right to vote. If the state and federal government cannot deny a right to vote, and you're saying it is a right, therefore they cannot regulate it, should that not apply to any other right? If there was a bill to outlaw the public exercise of religion to anyone under 21 years of age because, I don't know, you're calling them all ignorant, then would the Florida Senate pass that? The denial of the free exercise of a religion because the people are under 21? Would that not be discriminatory based on age? Can you deny someone the right to a jury if they're under 21? At what point do I inherit the full Bill of Rights and don't have to be subject to whatever Congress says I have the right to? I thought rights were supposed to be God-given. And if you want to say you're not fully a legal adult until you're 21, then press for a repeal on the 26th Amendment and stop being such a coward. Stop trying to rip our rights away while simultaneously saying, you gotta vote. You just turned 18, but you gotta vote. It's your right. You just got to. I hear that all the time on TV in election year. They're trying to get as many people to register to vote who know nothing about politics. Yet you're telling me you can't even have the choice to exercise a right given to you in the Bill of Rights fully until you're 21. But maybe you don't care about that. Maybe you don't care that the majority of the people who fought the Revolutionary War were my age, and they had to have access to modern firearms, which nowadays the equivalent would be considered a military-style weapon. How do you expect the militia not to be armed with military weapons? That contradicts the whole point to the Second Amendment. George Mason, the guy who wrote the Virginia Declaration of Rights I was previously talking about, said the whole people are the militia. So, should we deny the militia certain arms, especially the age 18 to 21, which I would expect the state to be telling 18 to 21-year-olds to rush off to fight for them if we did have a problem? You're saying it's our responsibility to take care of the state. Well, we can't do that if you're taking the most common rifles away from us. But again, some people don't care about that. Some people think this is all just crazy extremism. But I'm not opposed to looking into background checks and trying to prevent suicides and allowing the police and the FBI to have greater access, if it doesn't infringe on innocent Americans, greater ability to take guns away from very mentally unstable people. Not just someone who needs an emotional support pig, but someone who actually could harm themselves or others. And I like the parts of this bill that allow police to come to a jury and then that part expires or whatever. All that stuff I think is safe and lawful. This is just something that I think takes things too far, and I would like to see the bump stocks and the 21 year of age minimum amended out of this, if possible, if it hasn't passed the House by the time this video goes up. And here's why it wouldn't help at all. The Columbine shooting was done by two kids who purchased all their weapons before they were even 18. All their guns were illegally purchased. Most homicides that have been committed with a firearm are with firearms purchased illegally, and that crazy green-haired guy who shot up that theater several years ago, he was over 21. Omar Mateen, or that crazy guy who shot up that gay nightclub, he was 29, and Stephen Paddock was 64. The guy who mowed down everyone with a bump stock, not even in this state, was way over the age of 21. And here we go back into the bump stocks. Well, were machine guns not illegally purchased in Europe and mass murder still committed there? Have cars and bombs not been made to kill dozens of people in the same fashion? We have an extreme moral dilemma in this country and worldwide, and we cannot fix it through legislation. You can't fix racism through legislation. You barely can limit horrible drugs through more and more legislation. You can't stop gun crime in Brazil or Chicago or initially in England with more and more gun control. The only thing that works is a nation's moral standard. And the more that fades, the worse things get. And the more you blame the age, the more you blame the accessories or the firearms or whatever was used, the less responsibility is held on society, and the worse people are going to get. If you raise the age to 21, 18 to 20-year-olds are just going to be terrified of firearms, and it's not going to fix anything. The good kids will not be raised to think responsibly, they'll just raised to be dependent on what the government says is okay. If you legalize recreational marijuana, people will think it's okay just because it's legal. People are falling away from a standard separate from government. And the more you enforce a standard and say, you can't decide whether to wear your safety belt or not, you can't decide whether drinking's bad or not, you can't decide whether guns are good or not for you, the more you take that decision away, the less responsible and actually the more dangerous society is going to become, even though you think you're more secure. So I think that's all I have to say. Basically, stop discriminating against 18 to 20-year-olds. Please amend or oppose this bill, whatever ends up happening. And keep in mind, I'll be turning 21 in July, so I'm not panicking too much about this affecting me. It's completely out of the interest of this country and our liberty as a whole. Thank you for watching, and if you would like to hear more from me, please visit militiaofone.com, where I give political commentary on issues even separate from gun control.